Hey everyone, this is Russell. Thought it might be fun on this beautiful morning in Singapore to talk a little bit about the cache server service in Tableau 9. Here we are looking at it in the new Tableau web pages. This is the cache server component. Essentially, this is something called a key value store. It's actually a technology called Redis under the covers, and this is where we store our cache. So when render a report and we're answering some questions, those answers are actually getting stored as key value pairs in this little guy. Now the beauty of this is multiple services can talk to the cache server. So if I answer a question in one place, I can actually lean on that answer in other places later on. So we're going to kind of play with that right now and get a feel for what it can do. Now I actually took a little bit of time and ran a tab admin command, tab admin clear cache, to actually zero out the cache server, to get rid essentially of my cache. One of the things that we include with the product are some command line interface tools for Redis. They're right here. And I'm going to go ahead and run a particular command to get some information back. And among other things, we're going to see, for example, the amount of memory that's being used by the service, the number of clients that are actually connected, and then most importantly at the very bottom here, and it's actually blank, is key space. This is sort of a count of what is actually in the cache. And of course, because I cleared it just a moment ago, there's nothing, which is why it's blank. Let's go ahead and actually jump in. I'll kind of show you a few things here. Let's get into a site. How about right here? This is probably a good one. And we'll go ahead and take a look at some content. Get here. And I'm just going to run any old viz. Doesn't even matter. The important thing is I'm asking questions, getting answers, and then storing those answers somewhere. That's what I want to show you. So we're rendering, and voila, we have viz. Let's take a look at our key store again. We'll go ahead and run the same command. And now you can see we have 22 keys. So there were 22 useful pieces of information in the visualization that we ran that we saved for later. And of course, you're going to get the experience that you would expect. You know, when you render a report once and then shut the browser down and come back a little while later and ask for the same report, it's nice and fast. I'm not going to bother running that report a second time. We're going to do something a little bit different. First, let me launch a little stopwatch here because I want to time what we're about to do. We are going to run a report, or a viz, I should say, that connects to SQL Server live. And so just to make sure that I'm not reusing data that's in SQL Server's cache, I just cleared it there. And let's go ahead and get into the portal. And we'll navigate to where this guy is, and we will actually run it. I want you to get a feel for how long this guy takes when we run it cold, essentially. So we'll get ready to do that right now. Turn the stopwatch on. See how long it takes. Okay, about 7 seconds when all is said and done. Let's come back to our command line tool. Let's look at info again. Remember, we had 22 keys. Let's see how many we have now. We have 26. So the viz that we just ran had 4 useful pieces of information that we stuck into cache. Okay, now, again, we all know that if I was to close the browser, kind of come back in, rerun this guy in another second or two, I can actually get it up here. Let's go ahead and do that. It's going to come back, dramatically faster. And that's, of course, because the data is already here. We didn't have to ask SQL Server a question. And, of course, if I go back to my command line window and we fire this again, I didn't add any more keys because I already had the answer. So nothing new went into cache. Let's do this. I'm going to actually run through the same process that we did offline before we actually started the video. I'm going to stop Tableau server, then I'm going to clear the cache, and then I'm going to restart it. Now, this process actually takes, a minute or two to shut down and a minute or two to clear and restart. So I'm not going to make you watch all of that stuff. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. We'll put the video into sort of a time-lapse mode here as all this stuff happens. So I will be back in a couple of minutes. I'm just going to work over here on my real machines. Don't watch me too closely because you might see something top secret.
Yeah, I got your. Yeah, so yeah.
Okay, so it looks like we are back here. Our Tableau server is started. Let's go ahead and see what we have in the cache. We have nothing in the cache. That's to be expected based on what we just did. I'm going to go ahead and also fire our little command to clear the buffer cache of SQL Server. So now we're starting that cold as well. And now, let's take a look at our report. Now, we know based on what happened last time that if we were to run this report again and just kind of stopwatch it, we would see it come in at about 7 seconds, all things being equal. But again, because the cache server process is shared and can be used and touched by multiple processes on Tableau, there are some ways that we can actually warm the cache. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my tasks and specifically my subscriptions. You can see that I have subscribed to the report that we ran a little bit earlier. So what I could do by running the weekday morning schedule, which I'm going to do right now, we could actually essentially prime the cache. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to run that now. That's running in the background, rendering the report, and theoretically emailing it to me. I won't pop open my email to view it because I don't care about it. I'm also going to rerun just sort of any old viz. It doesn't matter. The reason why I want to do that is I want to make sure that my VizQL server has loaded all of the DLLs and all the other stuff that it needs. Because it takes a little while to do that the very first time you render, and I just want to make sure that the timed run of the report that we're about to do isn't thrown off by that. I theoretically could have done a tab admin warm-up to do that as well, but I'm already here and I'm a little bit lazy. So, okay, we should be ready to go. At this point, the subscription is probably finished. In fact, we could make sure by jumping over here and taking a look. Look, I have 26 keys in my key space now. 22 of them came from the first report we manually ran. The other 4 must have come from me running the subscription. So that being said, we know our cache is primed. And if I come here and actually, again, begin to run that guy, whoops, let's put that now. Well, you saw me sort of fat finger the stopwatch, but it was no more than 3 seconds for this to come back versus the 7-ish it took before. That is the cache at work. The cool thing about this cache is that in many circumstances, it will actually survive recycling the Tableau server. It certainly will survive recycling the VizQL process itself. Once upon a time, it used to be that all of our processes that held cache, if you actually killed them, you actually were killing your cache as well. Here, I'll actually show you here. We'll kind of come in, let me find my VizQL server process. Don't do this, of course, at home, but I'm the boss of me. I'm going to manually kill that process, and now let's wait for another one to spin up and start building RAM. Let's see if it's up yet. I'll just sort by name and we'll find it.
So that they are not using just
VizQL server. Yep, looks like it's still kind of waking up. So I'll give this a second more. In the past, if I did this, once you get rid of the process, you get rid of the cache as well. Not the case here when we have the cache server process. So we'll wait a little while longer until this gets to about, normally mine settles in at about 350K, 400K initially. So once I see that number and my CPU goes down, that's probably a signal to me that it's pretty much ready to do some work. Yep, it's quieted down, so it's probably ready to do some rendering for me. I'm going to go to Content, And again, just to make sure we're dealing with apples and apples, I'm going to run just a random viz to sort of wake up the VizQL. We also, even though this won't make a bit of difference because we're going to hit the VizQL cache via the cache server process, I'm going to clear the cache on SQL Server as well. And now let's come in and actually fire our report one more time, even after recycling the VizQL server process. And if everything works the way it should, what you'll see is it's going to come back just as quickly as it did last time, about 3 seconds. So there you go. I hope that was kind of a cool introduction to the cache server process. Love this little guy, and it can also be used via subscriptions as a fancy way to do cache warming. Have a great day.